Lord, and just protect all those people, and let's end this conflict. And just thank you for the many, many things you've blessed us with, and continue to bless this country and this state. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Senator Shelnut. Today the pledge will be led by Senate Intern Elizabeth Murphy.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Allen, Mr. Barfoot, Mr. Beasley, Mr. Butler, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Chasteen, Ms. Coleman Madison, Ms. Dunn, Mr. Elliott, Ms. Figures, Mr. Gavan, Mr. Gudger, Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Holly, Mr. Jones, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Marsh, Mr. McClendon, Mr. Melson, Mr. Orr, Mr. Price, Mr. Reed, Mr. Roberts, Ms. Sanders Fortier, Mr. Schofield, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shelnut, Mr. Singleton, Mr. Smitherman, Mr. Stutz, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Weaver, Mr. Watley, Mr. Williams,
Ladies and gentlemen, we had 24 senators present, which is a quorum. The Senate is ready to transact business.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we excuse absent senators.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we dispense with the reading of the journal from the previous legislative day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. At this time, I'd like to recognize a few special guests in the gallery. From Crenshaw County, guest of Senator Barfoot, Judge Will Tate, and Tom Perdue. If you could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right, now move on to introduction of bills. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, make a motion we allow for the introduction of bills throughout the day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to allow committees to report at any time today.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, now move on to motions and resolutions.
President.
Senator Wagner.
Have some resolutions from the Rules Committee.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolutions.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 61 by Representative Jackson celebrating the Dr. C.L. Hogue Activity Center. Also, House Joint Resolution number 73 by Representative McClammy celebrating the Driving Force Women's Golf Club. Also, House Joint Resolution number 82 by Representative Blackshear commending the Glenwood High School Ladies Gator varsity basketball team. Also, House Joint Resolution number 86 by Representative Hall commending William F. Pickard. Also, House Joint Resolution number 84, mourning the death of Robert McDade Burton. Receive a favorable report.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move adoption of the resolutions from Rules.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Have a resolution.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 34, recreating the Joint Committee on Statewide Trauma System Funding, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I have a substitute for HJR 70. There was a misspelled word in the original resolution. This is substitute.
All right, Secretary Reed received the substitute.
Substitute to House Joint Resolution Number 70, commending Dr. Jane Meyer for outstanding professional achievement.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of substitute resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. All right, now we need to adopt the resolution. Senator Wagner. All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. Senator Coleman Madison,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for a moment of personal privilege.
you're recognized.
Thank you. Members, this is the beginning of March, also Women's History Month, so if y'all want to do anything special for the ladies. But I just want to remind everybody of the contributions that women have made throughout history. Right now, there is a very good exhibit in our archives, so I know that there's a reception this evening, so if you happen to go over there to the reception, do take time to visit the archives because it talks about women through history. And I would say that this body has become a better body because we do have females in it. And I want you to think for one moment, gentlemen, if we could just listen for a second, and ladies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where would this world be if it were not for the contributions of women? And I want us to think as we, as lawmakers, pass laws, how they impact the future of women and the future of our state and this nation. If we look at all of the contributions of women, and we think about women not only in government, but women in public service, in the medical profession, and law, engineering, you name it. Right now, you probably have more women being graduated from law school and medical school than you do men. And so I want us to be very cognizant about laws that we pass that put up barriers to women, that put up glass ceilings. As we honor women during March, which is Women's History Month, we have gone to the moon and back, and I would dare say, were it not for the woman, go figure, we might not have made that trip to the moon. So I want us to, as we think back and reflect on all of the contributions of women, that we also think about the laws that we pass. But do take time as you go through, if you go to the reception this evening, take time to look at the display that they have at our state archives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thanks, Senator Coleman Madison.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
without objection, I'd like to request that committee reports can be accepted anytime during the day.
All right, we've already got that motion. All right. Any other motions or resolutions?
Yes, sir, I have a resolution. Mr. President, I'd like to introduce this resolution, ask that it be read at length and all senators' names be added, please.
All right, Secretary Reed received the resolution, and you requested read at length. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 57 by Senator Figures and others, naming a portion of Interstate I-65 corridor connecting Interstate 10 to Interstate 65 in honor of Michael A. Figures. Whereas Senator Michael A. Figures was born in Mobile, Alabama, and went on to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree from Stillman College in Tuscaloosa. And whereas Senator Figures was one of the first 3 African Americans to earn his Juris Doctorate from the University of Alabama School of Law. And whereas after establishing his own practice, Senator Figures had a successful legal career, taking up the cause of labor unions and small businesses and serving as co-counsel with the Southern Poverty Law Center in winning a major victory against the United Klans of America. And whereas in 1978, Senator Figures became the first African American senator representing Mobile County in the State House. And whereas Senator Figures held his seat for 18 years, during which time he was voted outstanding legislator and elected President pro tempore of the state Senate, making him the highest ranking African American in state government. And whereas Senator Figures continued through his tenure to advocate for the rights of those less privileged, and his Helping Schools tag campaigns generates over $600,000 annually for local schools. Whereas Senator Figures was posthumously inducted into the Alabama Lawyers Hall of Fame in 2009, and whereas Senator Figures was a loving and dedicated husband and father, and whereas Senator Michael A. Figures was a trailblazer in Alabama's legal sphere and state legislature, and whereas it is both appropriate and desirable to honor Senator Figures, who made the lives of his fellow citizens better and whose tireless and dedicated public service to Mobile County and the state of Alabama left a lasting impact that will be remembered. Now therefore be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that the portion of the Interstate 165 corridor connecting Interstate 10 to Interstate 65 in Mobile County be named the Michael A. Figures Freeway. Be it further resolved that the appropriate officials place and maintain signs or markers as provided in this resolution.
All right, have a motion for all senators to be added as co-sponsors. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President, I'd like to move for the adoption of this resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members of the Senate. I think it is an honor that's very appropriate for my late husband, and I thank you for your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Figures. All right, any other motions or resolutions? All right, now move on to a local bill. Secretary, call the first local bill.
On page 35 of the calendar, Senate Bill 242 by Senator Orr, a proposed constitutional amendment relating to Morgan County.
Mr. President,
Senator Orr.
do we have a long roll?
Do not.
Yet? We need to
establish one.
All right, I would move, guess we don't have a BIR or no. There it is. All right, move adoption of the BIR, please, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman Madison. Ms. Dunn. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Jones. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Marsh. Mr. McClendon. Mr. Milson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sanders-Fortier. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Wiley. Mr. Williams.
27 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 35 of the calendar, Senate Bill 242 by Senator Orr, a proposed constitutional amendment relating to Morgan County.
Senator Orr.
Mr. President, I move third reading using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
27 ayes, 0 nays. The Senate Bill 242 passes. Senator Orr. Senator Orr. Senator Orr. Do you want to do certification resolution?
Yes, I would, Mr. President. Thank you. I'd move this time to certify the vote.
All right, using previous roll?
Using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
27 ayes, 0 nays. The certification resolution's adopted. All right, this concludes local bills. Senator Wagner.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
have a report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary Rudin received the report from the Committee on Rules.
Report from the Committee on Rules, Senate Resolution Number 58, Special Order Calendar. Be it resolved by the Senate that the following bills, the order name shall be the special paramount continuing order of business, taking precedence over all other matters until disposed of for the 16th legislative day only. On page 16 of the calendar, Senate Bill Number 190 by Senator McClendon relating to redistricting. On page 10, Senate Bill 156 by Senator Orr relating to public assistance. On page 14, Senate Bill 51 by Senator Smitherman relating to education. On page 23, Senate Bill 148 by Senator Butler relating to the Board of Veterinary Examiners. On page 22, Senate Bill 165 by Senator Whatley relating to taxation. On page 27, Senate Bill 204 by Senator Livingston relating to law enforcement officers. On page 24, Senate Bill 233 by Senator Barfoot relating to courts. On page 26, House Bill 105 by Representative Gaston relating to abuse. On page 19, House Bill 285 by Representative Klaus relating to nursing facilities. On page 19, House Bill 286 by Representative Klaus relating to hospitals. On page 20, House Bill 287 by Representative Klaus relating to emergency medical transport providers.
Mr. President. Mr. President, move
Senator Wagner.
adoption of the resolution using short roll call.
All right, any object? Senator Smitherman.
I'd like to be recognized to talk on a special order.
You recognized.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to get a copy of it. I noticed that on our special order calendar, we have several.
Mr. President.
Senator Reed.
Mr. President, can I have a moment of personal privilege?
Yeah, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I would like to ask the female members of our body if they would stand. Today marks the beginning of Women's History Month, and I want to recognize these ladies. Ladies, you're not listening. There she is. Mr. President, I just want to say thanks to these ladies who work diligently on behalf of their constituencies, and they make this body a much better body because of what they bring and offer to us as a group. So I just want to say on this month, thank you for what you do and what you represent and all of your hard work. I also want to extend a sincere word of gratitude not only to the women of the Alabama Senate, but also our staff. We've got a lot of staff that are here that support us and I want these ladies to know how much we appreciate them. We appreciate our governor, Kay Ivey, and want to celebrate the ladies in our lives that help us do the jobs that we do and how much we appreciate them on this 2022 National Women's History Month. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Reed.
Mr. President, may I have a brief, I know we're getting back on this, but could I have a brief moment of personal privilege?
You're recognized for point of personal privilege.
In conjunction with what Mr. Pro Tem just did, I'm going to request a moment every so often as we go through this month to feature our women in history, and I'm going to, in part, do a series of featuring the women in the Bible. So I want each person to know that I'm going to do a little something regarding that so that we can give our females the recognition they deserve also.
Yeah, sounds great.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
I'm whenever to be recognized.
You still want to talk on the special order calendar?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're recognized.
Thank you very much. We have a special order calendar here today, and I would like when we get on the calendar, I would like for the sponsors, if they would, to just kind of share with me the reasoning behind the bill and what impact these bills may have. I noticed we have several on here. We have first the one dealing with the redistricting and the legal challenge. You know, I think I'm not saying that it's excluded only to lawyers. By no means. This is not only a lawyer question or statement, but surely the lawyers in the legislature, and especially in the Senate in here, know what the first bill really does. What it does, in my opinion, that's why I want to know why, it changes the venue. And the reason being is that because the Capitol and the legislature is in Montgomery. So as such, the legislature being in Montgomery, those issues that are addressed as it relates to the legislature will be heard here at the courts in Montgomery. But I think that they are trying to develop a panel of 3 judges to be appointed by the presiding judge so that panel itself will select where these challenges may be heard. One of the concerns that naturally raises a red flag, and is not saying that it would or wouldn't be the case, I don't know, but it does invite the opportunity for forum shopping. That's simply that you don't like where this is going to be held in this particular area here, so you say, well, I want it held in this part of the state. I realize that these are judges that will be selected by the Chief Justice, but if the judges are selected from one geographical area, it would most likely tend to believe that that area would be favored in regards to where venue would take place. Now, one of the things that I noticed about 10 years ago, when there was a challenge for the plans, and I think at that time it was the House and the Senate plans, is that when it went to federal government, the federal government itself developed a 3-judge panel to hear the case. And in that 3-judge panel, it was Judge Myron Thompson. What does that tell you? That tell you that 3-panel judge panel had diversity that was selected and created by the federal government so that it would have diversity. In this particular bill right here, there is no language as it relates to diversity, so that the 3-judge panel will then be representative of all the citizens in the state of Alabama, because you have a challenge that's taking place by all the citizens in the state of Alabama, i.e. whether it be the challenger or the challengees. But because of that, The second phase in this is that I'm going to come with an amendment, and the amendment said when appointing the additional circuit court judges to a 3-judge panel persuading to subsection C, the Chief Justice shall assure the panel membership is inclusive and reflective the racial, gender, and urban, rural, and economic diversity of the state. We have plenty judges in the state of all persuasions, i.e. whether it be male, female, black or white, African Americans, Asians, or other minorities as well. We have a litany of judges who have been successfully elected in this state, in particular on our circuit and district levels, who could serve on this panel and in this capacity. So I would hope that we would, the body would support this amendment at the proper time so that we can be able to have a panel that's reflective of our citizens here in the state. How much time do I have? Oh, I can go to my next one. I just I wanted to make sure I wouldn't get stopped in the middle of it. Our second bill on the calendar is a bill that's dealing with the, let's see, this bill, take these off right here where I can kind of really talk. And I'll put it back on in a minute. Okay.
Let me talk. Mr. President, would the gentleman yield without losing his time on motion?
Sure. Yes, Senator Singleton.
Yes.
I will.
Yeah. And I think this calendar is a calendar that we need to kind of look at. I think there's a couple of bills, as he was talking about, the calendar with the three-judge panel on state actions and redistricting. And I don't know the last time we've had a state action or redistricting, because everything has been going to the federal government, because it's been either based on the Civil Rights Act of Section 2, prior to that a Section 5 violation, or Section 4 somewhere in there. But state actions were, I guess, entail more of a whole county plan. But I do agree with the senator in terms of getting judges to be reflective so that we can have fair hearings. And I think there's another bill on this calendar that deal with men having to pay child support that is connected to their ability to work, and whether or not they can still, whether or not they can still get food stamps if they don't pay their child support. And we're now taking that relationship of child support and food, and that's going to be a real interesting topic and concept to look at. And I don't know whether that mandate is coming down from, I didn't know how many able-bodied men that are actually on food stamps in the state of Alabama, because I thought it was more dependent women, pregnant women, children, who were on food stamps. And I'm sure that there are some men that I felt they was in the more disabled, but then I learned that there was a small category called able-bodied men who were on food stamps. But at the end of the day, that number is small comparative to the population of the state of Alabama. And I would love to know what that percentage of those men who are receiving food stamps that have children that are not paying their child support, because I don't know whether or not this is a necessary piece of legislation or whether or not it's just being used as a tool in the toolbox to collect. And it's going to be an interesting conversation. So Mr. President, I would like to yield back to the gentleman for the rest of his time.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Smithman.
Thank you. That issue was the second one that I was going to talk about that the senator brought up. I I understand that sometimes we have well intentions. I understand that. I understand it fully.
You got me.
Sometimes we have well intentions. But just because somebody walks up to you and says something that really sounds good, and that in theory the statement is a good statement. The statement says that okay, thank you. All men should pay their child support. Now, mind you, there are women that pay child support too. So that's the first thing. We singling this out to men. So that's the only thing it's going to apply to is men. Now, the second thing is that, according to my reading of this bill and my research, this is a solution that's trying to establish a problem. Simply because, number one, there is nothing that's mandated by the federal government that we have to do this. It's nothing, it's not any amount they say that we will be deducted and not receive. It's not any mandate that we have to do it or we will be penalized. There is nothing. This is one of the ideas that came as a suggested list of tools that you can put in your toolbox to try to accomplish your end. It's nothing, there's a variety of exceptions why a person can or cannot do something, such as if they have a mental problem. These are the ones just coming to my head, out of the top of my head. If a person has a mental problem, if a person has a substance abuse problem, if a person is not physically able to do something, if a person, let's see, a person has been trying but has been unsuccessful, a variety of reasons. These are just some that come in my head, that nothing in here addresses those situations. The next thing in this particular bill, I want to make sure I get my focus straight on what we're saying here. The next thing in this bill is that if a person, there is no qualifiers in here. The next thing I noticed in this particular bill is that we are going to allow the decision of whether a person has conformed or not to the decision of an administrative person. Somebody who is not legally trained, somebody who just works in that department, no matter what title they have, they've not been legally trained, and they are going to make the final decision of whether a family will be able to eat or not, based on their opinion of whether this person has done enough to justify not cutting off their child, cutting off the food stamps. The next thing is that you're going to have men that have other children who are not subject to child support, who they are obviously doing something, taking care of them, food-wise or otherwise, who now those kids will suffer indirectly because we were going to take the food away from this man because he didn't pay the child support. The other incidental consequence to this as well is that I don't know if anybody has really sat down and thought about this, but if anybody thinks that you're going to, a person who makes very little or nothing, a person since the last time they've been established to pay this, has not had the means or ability to do it, which that is the court standard, we're going to tell this person, we're going to take your food away. We want you to go home or wherever you go and sit down and go right on and starve to death. They're not making any money. We're going to take their food away. And we expect them to be law-abiding citizens and go home and die of starvation. That's what we expect. But that's not going to happen. Because all you're going to do then, you're going to drive them to go to the grocery store to steal some food so that they can eat. A person not going to starve to death. So now you got this person who now may have never had any encounter with the law, who now going to have a criminal record. They can't get any job. Job.
Senator Smotherman, your time's expired.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, now
Long roll.
Long roll?
Yes, sir.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman Madison. Ms. Dunn. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Jones. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Marsh. Mr. McClendon. Mr. Milson. Mr. Orr.
Hey,
Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sanders Fortier. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Watley. Mr. Williams.
24 ayes, 0 nays. The special order calendar is adopted. Secretary, call the first bill.
On page 16 of the calendar, Senate Bill 190 by Senator McClendon relating to redistricting. BIR pending.
Mr. President, I move adoption of the BIR.
Mr. President.
Previous rules all right with me.
Mr. President.
Senator Smotherman.
May I speak to the BIR?
You're recognized.
Okay, thank you. Senators, I want to thank you very much for allowing me to stay at the mic when you did the footwork to make some verifications. And I appreciate you, the consideration that you gave. I would like to talk a little bit about it, best you can. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I want you to know that. But just a little bit more to the rationale. You know, I don't have the privileges that, hey, look at it's just the way it is. I don't have the privileges to be in the big room where the big meetings going on. You know, so, and I mean, that's just the way it is, you know, and I ain't complaining. I just like to know what went on in the big room. See, so in that case, I like to know why we doing this. Why we gotta change this right now? I mean, what is the rationale? I'm not, you know, criticizing it or anything. I just want to know, you know, why I'm doing, why we're all of a sudden out of, and let me say this to you. Thank the Lord, well, give or take, I don't know if it was any period, give or take, I don't think it was, and I thank y'all too. When I say y'all, I'm talking about the whole body. But having to be opportunity to be on reapportionment, you know, be on the committee, and since I've walked in the legislature, first year I was in here, you know, when we went to that the next time, I had the opportunity to do that. So I say that as a person that have a little knowledge, you know, of this process, not more than claiming anybody else, but I got a little knowledge. I've had the opportunity, I think I'm correct, during the course of this experience to present 3 plans, you know, different kind of plans for consideration for the body. So having done that and been a part of I know I had to testify the last time when we had the suit, and even in this one being a plaintiff part, you know, kind of, I'm wondering now what made the change, you know. So can you share that, anything that you can share that maybe I can try to put that with what you tell me, and then maybe I can kind of piece it together in my mind or through our conversation, you know, get together. So could you kind of, if there's anything you could share with me in that regard?
There sure is. And I appreciate your comments earlier while you were discussing the adoption of the special order calendar. You brought up this bill, and you made the strongest point for me, and I appreciate you doing that. Of course, we know these redistricting cases impact north, south, east, west, entire state. And today, currently, before this bill takes effect, the judicial part of it is actually a regional thing. It's in a small part of the state. What this bill does is opens it up to all parts of the state. In fact, I've got an amendment. We've got 2 amendments here. You got one, I've got one, and that open it up even further. The first amendment I'm going to offer, if we get to the bill, will specify clearly that the Supreme Court justice will geographically have to select someone from the Northern District, someone from the Southern District, and then, of course, it'll come to Montgomery to give us better geographic representation on the new 3-judge panel that will consider these. And then you've come along and one-upped me and done a better job and said, let's put our diversity clause in here to make sure we've got balance from that area in addition to the geographic area. So I think between the 2 of us, we've come up with a pretty good bill, and what's going to happen, this bill will reflect how it's done at the federal level as far as a 3-judge panel. But I think here in Alabama, we've gone further than that to improve representation and diversity.
It says, you told me this and I can't remember it, okay? That's why I want to say this. I just don't remember. But in the geographical areas, do you say like north, central, and south? Or do you say north, south, east, and west? What do you?
It says a 3-judge panel are appointed from different districts. One of the additional circuit court judges, this is in the amendment.
Okay.
Geographic representation of the Northern District of Alabama, and the other additional circuit court judge from the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Alabama, and we know it'll be held in Montgomery. So that gives you north, central, and south geographic representations.
I see. I see how you work to balance that. Okay. All right. So what would we be considered up on Jefferson County in the northern part?
I presume that would be the case. I'm not familiar with where these districts are drawn. You're an attorney, and so you would know that better than I exactly where the lines fall for each of these circuit courts.
Okay. I see exactly what you're saying. Is there any other, give me some insight, is there anything else I need to kind of view or consider?
No, it's a very simple bill. It's it was a 2-page bill till you and I got a hold of it.
It still is. It has some space on the second page because you showed it to me.
Yeah.
It had about 2/3 more space on the second page, so these will fit just fine on there. So that is good. That is good then. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
Senator Smithman.
I'll yield back for him if you want to renew that motion on the I think it's the BIR, and I just ask for the long roll.
All right.
Move adoption of the BIR unless.
Senator Singleton, you good? All right. Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Butler. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman Madison. Ms. Dunn. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Jones. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Marsh. Mr. McClendon.
Aye.
Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Ms. Sanders Fortier. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Wally. Mr. Williams.
22 ayes, 4 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 16 of the calendar, Senate Bill 190 by Senator McClendon relating to reapportionment. Committee amendment pending.
All right, real quick. I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery. They're the guests of Senator Melson, the Leadership Shoals Group. If you could please stand. They're from the Florence Muscle Shoals area. Welcome to the Alabama Senate. Senator McClendon.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. President. We do have a committee amendment pending. This is the amendment that says we'll have additional judges appointed from the Northern and the Southern District. With that, I'd like to offer this amendment to the bill.
All right, it's a committee amendment.
It's a committee amendment. I don't have
Mr.
to.
President.
You got it?
Yeah, Senator
I'd like to
Singleton.
speak to the amendment, please.
All right, you're recognized.
Yes. Now I want to just understand the amendment to have judges appointed from what districts?
Good question. one additional circuit court judge from the Northern District, and then another additional circuit court judge from the Southern District of Alabama.
So what you're doing is creating a 5-panel judge instead of a 3 now?
No. What this amendment does, the bill creates the 3-judge panel.
Correct.
This amendment goes in there and says one of those other judges will come from the Northern District, another one will come from the Southern District. Of course, one's going to come from Central District already.
Right.
So no, not a 3-judge. We're still at 3 judges. It's just restricting that those judges are chosen from different parts of the state.
Okay, so you're just getting them from the northern, the south, southern, and the central.
That is correct.
And that's where the 3-judge panel will come from.
That is correct.
What about those of us at the east and the west?
I don't think they've got the districts, east and west districts.
Well, you don't have a northern, not in the state of Alabama, you don't have a northern or southern, that's only on the federal level. So you're going to tell me that? You can't tell me that because of the state. The state doesn't have a northern or southern and a central district in the state of Alabama. We don't do that. That's just on the federal level that we have southern and northern in middle districts. And so if that is the case, then why we're just choosing these for state court just to come from those 3 areas? That's not fair for the rest of us across the state of Alabama not to have someone who at least can hear them that may be of our peers also, or who we elected as a circuit judge. You're only getting circuit judges from the north, the south, and the central area.
It's just a way to define geographic diversity going on to this 3-judge panel.
Is that diversity, or is that just a 3-judge panel? Because will that language that you just passed allow for an African American, Asian, or woman, or anybody else to serve on that panel guaranteed?
Senator, I'm certainly glad you brought that up.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. You're a good man. That is the committee amendment, and that is one part. And we're coming forward. Senator Smitherman has come forward with a second amendment, which I consider a friendly amendment, that we call it the diversity language.
Gotcha.
And that's my intent, is once we adopt this one, then either Senator Smitherman or myself will offer this one and put it on the bill, and then do what we do as far as trying to ensure diversity in our activities here in Alabama.
Well, I appreciate you accepting that as a friendly amendment. But I still want to know what happened to East Alabama, West Alabama. We got good judges in those areas also.
Is that a question?
Yes, I want to know what happened to us, what happened to us. I mean, we, and probably, something, probably the most civil rights violation probably come out of those areas between Central and West Alabama.
As was pointed out previously, was that what we're trying to do is get geographic diversity here, and this is one way of doing it, and this is just a method of doing it based on these particular districts.
You know another good way of doing it? I just dropped a bill today that would allow us to be